everybody, and welcome to this latest edition of Breaking Down Barriers. I'm Jenna, the Executive Director of HDYO, and I'm really excited to have three friends here with me today to talk about some really cool programs that are developed to reach out directly to community members. We oftentimes think of support services happening within a building in a very traditional manner, but that's not how people live. And so, excited to dive into what these different organizations have in store for how they support their communities. So first, we're going to ask them to introduce themselves, a little bit about their background, and then we'll get started. So first, I'm going to pick on my friend Nacho. Nacho, welcome.
Hello, thanks, Jenna. I'm Ignacio or Nacho. I'm a neuroscientist working on developing therapies for Huntington's disease for 18 years now. And about 13 years ago, through traveling in South America to visit some of the largest communities of Huntington's patients in the world, including the communities that were studied for many, many years in Venezuela that enabled the identification of the mutation in 1993. I was able to identify the many problems that these communities are suffering in Venezuela, in Colombia, and in Peru. And I started a nonprofit foundation called Factor H, whose aim is to improve their quality of life.
Mhm. Yeah, some of you may remember we featured Nacho along with two of our ambassadors talking about just the experiences in Latin America. Gosh, I think when this program got started, it was a long time ago. But yeah, it's great to have you back. Thanks for being here. Erica.
Hello. I'm Erica Bolofsky. I'm the community outreach specialist and social worker with a nonprofit called HD Reach. I live in North Carolina within the United States. And this was something that, this is an organization that's kind of near and dear to my heart. That I actually come from an HD family, and then we actually used HD Reach services years ago. So HD Reach was started in 2009 and by a family impact by HD. And so it's been, I don't know, it's a really fun organization to be a part of, and being able to take my own personal experiences and go like, what can we create to connect with the community? They've kind of given me some reins in being able to do that. But so yeah, I've worked with HD Reach since like 2022, and this has been something that I've been really passionate about since then. So I'm excited to talk about more about like what we do and our programs, and go from there.
Sounds great. Thanks, Erica. And last but certainly not least, H. He also has some, I don't know if he's going to do his dance moves, but H is a
Oh,
phenomenal rump
we'll say
shaker.
we'll we'll save the dance moves for the live streams. So if you want to see that,
Perfect.
come check
Perfect.
out the live
There you
streams.
go.
Just plug that in there real quick. But just talking about that. Hi, I'm H. Patton. I live in North Carolina, also in the United States. Um, I volunteer with HD Reach through the Game Over HD program that Erica created. I'm a game lead there. I'm a live streamer. It's really how I found my way into the community, and it's had an unbelievable impact in my life. And so hopefully I get to share a little bit with that about that here.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks so much, everybody, for being here. This is going to be a really great conversation. I wanted to just dive again. We touched a little bit about organizations, but is there anything else you'd like to share about what each of your organizations do and how you serve the community before we get specifically into this conversation?
Sure, I can start if you want to go in the same order. So,
Yeah.
we've been focusing mostly, as I said, in um, very small communities. Maybe these are towns of about 5 to 7,000 people, where the incidence of the disease, for example, in Venezuela, may be as high as 10% of the town is positive and 30%
Mhm.
is at risk. So you can imagine several hundred patients living in a small village,
Mhm.
no institutional support, no continuous medical care. So our approach has really been restricted to those communities in Colombia, Venezuela, mostly because of lack of resources, and we provide all kinds of activities. Some of them clearly overlap with HDYO. Some of them are providing clothes and shoes and a lot of efforts on medical and psychological support, particularly
Mhm.
for young adults and teenagers. Um, Part of the reason I think I'm here today is because we do a lot of things for those communities, but those represent only a small fraction of all of the at risk and affected people in those countries and more broadly
Mhm.
in Latin America, which tends to be less included in international efforts. That's part of the
Mhm.
reason I started going down to South America many years ago. And one of the approaches that we want to take to better give access to information, both practical information to caregivers, which
Mhm.
is a big problem, especially when they live in remote areas or rural areas with no access to professionals. And I don't think this is unique to Latin America.
Yeah.
In the US and in Canada and in Australia, really big countries where there's a lot of families that don't have specialists nearby and they may not have adequate support system to ask for advice as to how to deal with the disease,
Mhm.
or kids that don't want to be seen publicly at meetings but have curiosity, is to be able to create a phone application that would essentially enable anybody to access different kinds of information, mostly in audiovisual, simple, easy to use, as well as being a
Mhm.
conduit for us as organizations to be able to um, know the status, for example, of caregivers. So we can provide
Mhm.
surveys directly through the application that are very easily filled on the phone. And then we know for those individuals who want to be in contact with one of the associations that we can reach out to them if we realize that they have an extreme burden or they have a medical emergency and so forth. So we've been working on this concept of the application mostly in Spanish, and I do have
Mhm.
a small video that I can show you, but it's essentially very versatile and it can link to outside, um, any other sites for information, including, educational talks by professionals
Mhm.
or all of the seminars that you guys organize, for example,
Yep.
in Spanish to have more visibility. So, we're really trying to figure out what is the minimum and most important content that we can launch
Mhm.
the application with. But this is also what I discussed with Jenna. It's something that I think could be broadly applicable in pretty much in any country. So I think
Yep.
trying to do this as a partnership in Spanish and English, or maybe other languages
Mhm.
even. And it's also something that I think hopefully we're going to get sponsorships to be able to
Mhm.
do it. We do have systems engineers that are working with Factor H to design
Mhm.
the application and the coding. But if there's a common interest in terms of can we link the application to ongoing efforts both at HDYO and at HD Reach that
Mhm.
essentially would benefit as many people as possible, even those people who we might never hear about. That's kind of the concept. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I think that there's the concept of, you're technically regional and, but what is regionality anymore? What
Mhm.
is national anymore? Because everything is so accessible from anywhere. And so, adding that in and making those connections is so important because even people who don't know other people or aren't as comfortable to talk about it, they can connect. And I think this is what we'll get into even more, connect even by having those resources and knowing they're not the only ones using it too, which is really powerful. Yeah.
No,
Erica. Oops.
sorry, I think the idea, and we talked about this, Jenna,
Mhm.
the other day. There's people that maybe in Pakistan or in India. I
Yep.
think creating an app that is free of use
Hmm.
for people to be able to access all kinds of content about HD, very sophisticated and very minimal. Like it could be even an avatar answering questions, completely
Hmm.
depersonalized. I mean, there's the potentiality of using this as a communication strategy that can impact people. I think is great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Erica.
I love that part about connecting like the accessibility of technology now, right? Because
Hmm.
with HD Reach starting in 2009, we were really created to like bring resources and supports to the state of North Carolina. And here in
Hmm.
the United States, I mean, southern states in general could always use a bit more resources and support.
Hmm.
And so even then, it's like we were able to like provide a lot of these in-person like We do pizza meetups. We do different things within the state because we physically live here. But then it's like, well, there's so many things that are like make sense virtually that we can reach
Mhm.
more people because we have a lot more accessibility than we used to have. So I like to say, our focus is still like as an organization, we do a lot of grassroots efforts like here in the state, because it's what we can physically do. But when it comes
Mhm.
to, H mentioned our Game Over HD program, our book club, like some of these things that are virtual, it makes sense to try to connect and touch with as many people
Mhm.
as we can because it's a lot more possible than it had
Mhm.
been in the past.
Yeah. And I think even post-COVID too, the concept, the thought process has changed even for people who are in the community to know, oh, I can actually do that. It's not as scary to reach out and do this. And there's so many more mechanisms to make that possible.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, So yeah, but that's a little bit more about like, our beginnings and
Mhm.
what we do, but it's a family disease. So I think it's, when we all collaborate and work together and when we can reach as many people as we can in different versions, different ways,
Yeah.
that's really how we're gonna, that's how we reach as many people as we can.
Well, I think even just that, I mean, we all, whether or not people realize this, we all work together in some fashion. And
Yeah.
Erica, you'll contact me and say, hey, I've got someone whose family lives in India. Who can they
Hmm.
contact in India? So then we
Yep.
can get you in the right contact. Nacho, you
Yep.
and I work together all the time with that kind of stuff. And who can attend Congress? And Nacho, we might provide scholarships to go. Nacho provides funds to people to get them there, things
Mhm.
like luggage or coats or things that maybe they don't have on hand in their day-to-day lives. So it all works together behind the scenes, but it's just not, this is a way for us to continue to make it visible about how we can all partner.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think in that sense, part of what we decided to include in the app is a button that is to contact professionals or to contact local
Hmm.
associations. So
Hmm.
depending on where they are, they can immediately go to our WhatsApp number or an email, so that people know exactly who to reach out to. We get calls all the time from people that they just found out they're HD positive and they're
Yeah.
really scared and they want to talk to people and not everybody responds or they don't know who's a good
Yeah.
professional. The
Hmm.
the other aspect is that there is collectively a lot of information. For example, there's
Yeah.
so many different guides. People don't know where to find them.
Yeah.
And a lot of the guides are 50 pages long.
Hmm.
People don't read or don't know how to read in many parts of the
Hmm.
world, and therefore the idea is, can we define, let's say, nutritional guides, but also do videos for how to feed
Hmm.
patients in the later stages of the disease that are
Hmm.
30 seconds or 1 minute. This is how you need to position the patient. And that works in India, it works in the US, and it
Yep.
works in any part of the world. And those are the types of topics that I think if we agree, like what are the types of things that you guys, from your perspective, you find
Hmm.
would be most helpful? It's a matter of, generating that dossier of the things that we have and we need to create
Hmm.
and how to build it into the application. Yeah.
I love that example. And I hear Juan Carlos in my head saying that, because the Juan Carlos is one of our mutual friends and he's one of our ambassadors and a good friend to Factor H. And he's the founder of the Costa Rican Association. And he's actually was on in August talking about how he started the association and how he physically, because he's a nurse, so he physically will go to people's houses and do exactly that. But if you don't have someone who can do that and you are isolated and alone, choking and feeding and all of those things are tangible things that it would be so nice to have that easily accessible to say, okay, here I'm doing it. Like that guide is so important. Yeah, that's a great example. H, I want to pick on you a little bit. So you're a young person. Um, let's talk about technology. So how do you use technology? How do you see other young people using technology in general, and how important is it into your day-to-day lives?
I would say that it's almost essential in day to day,
Yeah.
regardless of your outlook on whether it should be or not. I think it is. And I think I think it's good to focus on the young people aspect of that because it's the more modern way of consuming information or finding information or news or like y'all are talking about here, resources. Um, I mean, just TikTok alone, we can go down the rabbit hole of like attention spans and all that with a younger generation and just like the constant like there has to be 15 things happening or I'm not really consuming what's in front of me. Um, but I think there's some truth to that. I think there's so much of like the built-in, specifically here in the US, like such a built-in, like I have to be at mass production level all the time. So I have to consume my information on the run. So things like TikTok, short snippets that catch your attention that you're like, okay, I'll save that for later and I'll go back and revisit that article or that resource, or I can find out more about this. But right now, I got that 15-second snippet that is going to help me later. And I think that's what we're seeing more of is like catching somebody's attention really quickly, so
Mhm.
that they find you interesting enough to find out more later. Um, and I don't like to look at it as necessarily a bad thing. I think it's more of like how do we adjust to it because I feel like it's just the natural course of it being inevitable. So we just have to adjust to that and find ways to go to people. And then technology also. I think technology with young people is a we talk about safe spaces a lot of the time.
Mhm.
But I think it is really a safe space. You don't have to divulge too much information about yourself. You can almost act entirely anonymously and have full-blown relationships built upon that anonymous interaction through messaging or
Mhm.
voice conversations where you may develop a relationship with somebody for 10, 15 years. But you've never seen that person before.
Mhm.
And I think that's another aspect that we're just now getting into in the HD community is finding that talking about Huntington's disease it can be a challenging topic.
Mhm.
It can be very emotional, or you're afraid to say the wrong things, or you don't even know where to begin. But that staying behind a screen or behind a phone helps ease some of that tension.
Yep.
And so technology can really be a breakthrough component when it comes to reaching people and having these conversations.
Yeah, so it's safety from an arm's length is how I call it, where you can literally be this far away from having to identify yourself. And we've had to push really hard about the impact of social media and using it in the right way to get messaging across, which was the whole idea behind our first survey, because we knew it, but we had to prove it in numbers, and we did.
Mhm.
But that's how people are getting their information, um, which is
It
good and
is.
bad. But we have to meet people where they are, because I think the days of, when it's again, we're dealing with young people, specifically in this call, but I think it goes on even to further is that people are busy.
Hmm.
And if you're expecting people to stop and contact you for support, it rarely happens unless something is very dire. We have to create the platforms for when they're ready, it's there right in front of their face.
Yeah.
Or because we can't be as interventional as we'd like, because there's just not enough resources for us to call everybody and check on people individually all the time. But we have to develop these ways that create a way for them to feel comfortable in whatever way that is to reach out and get resources when they can.
Just as an example, I was very curious about this. So I did a quick Google search and I went to a reliable source, the Pew Research study, that in 2020, TikTok users, 20% of TikTok users use it as a source of news.
Yeah.
In 2025, that has gone up to 55% of users.
Didn't it
It's,
surpass? We had an expert come in and talk with our marketing committee, and they said that it surpassed Google as the top search engine for our age demographic. Yeah.
I, I definitely believe it.
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, it is what it is. And I think even for people who are not in that bracket of age demographic, I'm not, and I'm also on it all the time. So I think it's just really important to keep exploring that. Thanks, H, for that. Um, Erica, I want to give you some time to talk a little bit about Game Over and, talk about how it was created, what the intentions were, and how it's going. And from your perspective too, as being someone who's been there for a couple of years at least now since the inception, what is
Mhm.
it and how does it work and what's been the response?
Yeah. So Game Over, it's my entire personality right now. You can tell my sign, my shirt. It's kind of in my soul at this point. It actually came to me years ago, like even before I started working for HD Reach. I had a friend who had adopted a child and he wanted to play Call of Duty, but he needed a safe person to play with, like an adult, not a stranger. So I was that person that got to play with him. And he just like he would spill all his little guts about all the school people, the drama, the like all this stuff. And it was just something I would talk to his mom about too. That was like, how cool is that? Just to like just get all of this little information and like this kid's just feeling so comfortable, like shooting people in this game, having a good old time, but also like revealing things off of his little heart and like grades and all this stuff that, he wasn't necessarily having like open conversations all the time. And so that was something that just like stuck with me. I was like, how cool would
Mhm.
that be to just, incorporate video gaming with like a support system, a group, a therapy, something. And then when I was actually interviewing for HD Reach, I was like, so I think this is a program that I am going to do. And if I
Mhm.
get hired, this is what I want to do for the HD community. And so from the start, I was able to, get that ball rolling and get some interest. And so, and then Game Over HD eventually came to fruition, and right now it is a 18 and over video game club for those who are impacted by Huntington's disease. So when somebody applies on our website at hdreach.org, you put in a little bit of your information that goes directly to me, and then I set up like, hey, let's do a little Zoom meeting just to kind of see what
Mhm.
you're comfortable with, what you're not. Because I want this is a group that you should never feel you have to tell your story.
Mhm.
Everybody just knows, right?
Mhm.
We don't have a bunch of random people in the group. Everybody just knows there's some type of connection. And everybody signs like a confidentiality form and, be kind and that kind of thing before they come in. And right now it is a Discord now. So we used to have another app that we used, but we use Discord now. That has just grown, and we have game times all throughout the month. And we eventually went to creating game leads, which is what H is one of four game leads who go through a specific training around just moderation, boundaries, safety, so that they can help kind of moderate the chats and then also host their own game times.
Mhm.
Um, and they can be that support and make sure that, the environment itself just remains like a safe space for everybody. And then a year ago, we started streaming. Me, H, and Rico actually were talking, and we're like, how cool would this be to, just start streaming gameplay and talking about HD. And then eventually, we have story time, which, people from the HD community come on and tell their stories. We have professionals that come on and H is literally like playing like Stardew Valley or whatever game they want to play. Fortnite, they're just like, shooting people and just like, yeah, so like my mom was like tested positive and blah blah, and this was my testing journey. And it's just such a cool little way of like people talking about their story and then the chat can like interact. And so that's kind of like where our socials go into like clips of that and bits of that. And so it's kind of like feeding resources and information in like that live setting. And then privately, we have this chat that also like we're also feeding
Mhm.
resources. It's a support, and then it's a more privatized like gaming group that can just like connect. Um,
I
and
do want to
that
highlight that you don't just do war games. You also do like
Oh, sorry.
Minecraft and other things.
Yeah, I know I'm like talking about war games a lot. No, we have Cozy Corner Mondays, like it's Sims, it's all these like Stardew Valley, it's some of these and we play online card games. Right now they're really big into exploding kittens virtually right now. Um, but it's Minecraft. It's really the people, the members get to
Yeah.
kind of really choose the games. And that's
Mhm.
what we create the calendar out of, is
Mhm.
what people are wanting to play with each other.
It's really cool.
We're having a, we're learning, and I think even when you said like, before about like just people taking a little bit to like connect, I think I thought in the beginning, oh, this is easy. This is a gaming program. Who doesn't want to be a
Yeah.
part of that? But what we realized really quickly was just because people joined a gaming program doesn't mean that they'll actually join the game times because it was
Yeah.
still very nerve-wracking. And so we had to like reevaluate how we like got them in, immediately went into a game time, let them meet people. And that's now we're finding that getting them to that next step to
Mhm.
actually like meet people individually in that sense is like making people just so much more involved and feeling much more
Mhm.
comfortable.
H, from your perspective, what has it been like?
It's been great, and I've loved to just be here for the entire evolution of it because, like Erica was talking about, we're constantly learning what we can do differently to make it better and more attractive, and make it just a safer space for everybody. Um, we were talking about playing Minecraft. That's probably one of my favorite games right now. Everybody's like, "Oh, you're still playing Minecraft?" I'm like, "Yeah, because it's so background casual that
Mhm.
we can get deep into the weeds if you want to. Or I'm gonna ask you, where do I find this mineral in the ground so we can go build something together?" So it's just the options to talk about HD or not talk about HD is a
Mhm.
great setting. And um, I haven't necessarily heard the side of people being a little more hesitant to join some of the game times and stuff. And I think that's where the live streaming sort of helps with that because
Yeah.
you sort of get a preview. You're just watching somebody interact with the community, and then with the general public as well, talking about Huntington's disease. So you can sort of build your own one-sided relationship with this person,
Mhm.
and then you can determine, okay, I would like to join their game time because I
Mhm.
stream, and then I have a personal game time for people impacted by HD. So
Mhm.
you could join that game time after you see me on a stream, and you could just be like, "Hey, I saw your stream, and let's chat about it." Um, and then Erica, as always, has been fantastic and really easy to reach anytime we have any questions or have this harder or deeper conversations. But if it wasn't for my sister, I wouldn't have ever even found out about Game Over HD. I think Erica or somebody on the social media team made a post about Game Over HD on Instagram. My sister tagged me, and then that's how I got started. I reached out to Erica, started chatting about what does this look like, and it's been amazing. I mean, if I was trying to have this conversation 2 years ago, like I would just be like in a puddle. It's helped
Yeah.
me grow a lot with my relationship with HD. And
Mhm.
then it's really touching to see how much it can impact other people. And like we talked about earlier, going to them and finding the space that they're comfortable in,
Mhm.
and then pulling them into the community through their comfort zone.
Yeah.
Um, it also opened doors to other things HD related,
Mhm.
just to put my foot in the door. We talk about finding people at their comfort level and then getting them involved in HD things. It allowed me to travel to international convention to Prague. It allowed me to go to and live stream from um, Education Day with HD Reach. It allowed me to travel to Florida for a Help for HD event, where all of these amazing opportunities to meet people within the community and grow my knowledge and find resources for my family, would never have happened without Game Over HD.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. It's awesome. Is this only in the US or do you have some news you'd like to share?
Oh, no, it's not just in the US. And when it comes to also just like being friends behind the scenes, like I literally wanted to go global for a while, but Jenna was like, I'm like, do I really? I want to go global, but Jenna's like, just do it. It's fine. Like, I'm here. We're here if you need, like, it's fine. And I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna hit the start button. It's fine. But like, I just, I had always wanted to be, I want this to not have, like, not just not have borders, not, not
Mhm.
um, be a barrier for others where, depending on where they live, like, to be a barrier for them to be able to like experience this group and this incredible, just like batch of humans, because we are so lucky just with the people that are in this group, and they're so loving, so incredible. And it's really, we've got some of our first international people that are not within the United States or Canada, and that has been so exciting because now we get to really build on, our knowledge of resources and things that they need to be supported. And we're just going to continue to like adapt in that way. And, you know, I mean, the goal eventually is to have an under 18. That's what I
Mhm.
always have still wanted. Right now, we have a Sunday family game time where people can bring their kids. So that's kind of our way of like a family time that
Mhm.
everybody can join. But, eventually that is what we hope to have so that age really isn't that much of a barrier
Mhm.
either. But for right now, we're global.
Yeah.
Everybody can apply. Um, and yeah, we're happy about it.
Yeah, and Nacho, we talked about too, there are several ambassadors who are gamers too. So could we do one that's in Spanish? Could we do one in
Mhm.
different time zones? Because even in the US, there's, on the continental US, there's four time zones, let alone, looking into Alaska and Hawaii. But that gets even more complicated when you're doing international to offer that, which I think could be a really great opportunity in several parts of the world too.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
that we definitely have so much more to go with just like working with HDYO and working with more organizations to like make things accessible when it comes to
Hmm.
language. And right now, it's like a baby step of things are still
Yeah.
in English, and we have that open, but there's so much more room to grow when it
Hmm.
comes to accessibility in so many
Right.
different forms that we're not stopping. We got plenty of room to
Can
keep
can I
adapting.
can I ask you, or maybe you can follow
Yeah.
up with an email later in terms of how can one access one of these either meetings or live streaming sessions?
Yeah.
You have the systems engineer that is doing the app as bilingual, and I
Mm.
suspect he's a gamer. Um, so I would like for him to join one of these and see
Yeah.
how he sees it, because I think I think it'll be good to have a few people from Spanish culture
Hmm.
that are bilingual and therefore can participate and give me feedback in terms of how they see this being adapted. But I've always said that the best way to get especially kids to open up is for them to have a good time
Hmm.
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
So we've been doing it through having, parties or
Hmm.
Christmas events or
Yeah.
dinners, or take them to a place with a swimming pool and everybody's happy, and then conversations start happening naturally when they're
Hmm.
relaxed. So I think this is a fantastic idea, and I think it can impact everybody in the world, because all young
Hmm.
people like to play games. So
Hmm.
except people like me who were useless at games, and therefore I never used to, because I always lost and I hate losing. So there you go.
There are games
You
for
can.
everyone.
I was about to say
The only one was Trivial Pursuit. Okay, that was my
That's a
game.
game.
That was my game. Because
listen, everybody should know BJ View and Wes Solom. They popped
Yep.
on to talk about HD genetics and played Uno.
Hmm.
That like we there is it's incredible all that has just been made virtual.
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
just accessibility in so many different ways in that sense of just, you don't have to be this is definitely not a group of there's a lot of people that have a lot of knowledge with video games, but there's also a
Hmm.
lot of people who are just like, I just like to play like and hang out. Like or even just like they're doing their own thing and still just a part of conversation. Like,
No, it's
I've been
wonderful.
putting my child to bed and streaming on my phone just through the chat because I also don't play games and I'm the like the old person because my username is my name. And they were all making fun of me because they all have these, names that like you can't ever guess who it is. And I'm like, oh, Jenna Heilman.
Jenna's like,
Here.
hi, and everybody's like, Jenna Heilman, it's her whole name. It's great.
So you
But
can do that, Nacho. You can join with me and we can be the old fogies
yep,
who are joining the
Yeah.
stream.
yep.
No, send me how to do it. I love to check it out.
Yeah. So on HD Reach, where it's the name is HD Reach Game Over HD. Long name. Somebody took Game Over
Mhm.
HD, so we got the full name. But we stream on Twitch and YouTube, and then we have socials on TikTok, Instagram,
Mhm.
Okay.
and Blue Sky, Blue Ski,
Mhm.
however you say that.
This guy.
And then if you want to apply for the program, if you're impacted 18
Mhm.
plus by HD, you apply at hdreach.org, and there's a Game Over
Okay.
slot there. But
I'll check it out.
thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
That's great.
So it's interesting because there's so many similarities, not to with what you're doing on the app and the intentions behind that, what's going on with something that seems like a very simple first step, but it's really complicated and has made such an impact. And I think that these things go hand in hand, especially with the intent behind it.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
absolutely. And again, it's like not one thing is going to help everybody, right? So I think
Mhm.
the idea for me is that the app becomes an easy way to find information no matter where you are in the world. And through
Mhm.
that, there are links like, okay, this is the link to the streaming HD Reach video game in the following languages whenever it's available.
Mhm.
Um, and other types of things that we can think of collectively, because I think what
Mhm.
tends to happen, and it's even worse in Latin America than it is in the US, is that every organization is doing their own thing. They don't talk to
Yeah.
one another. Some of them don't have any resources and they don't really know what to do with their families, and others have a lot of resources and do a lot of things that nobody else benefits from because there isn't a concerted effort to bring everybody together
Yeah.
for the global community. So, I mean, Jenna knows that I want to set up some kind of federation in Latin America so
Mhm.
that, you know, some organizations are doing amazing work. I mean, they even have an application for psychological support for youth
Mhm.
in Brazil
Mhm.
that I think we can learn from, and we can adapt
Mhm.
it in different cultural contexts. That would be great. Why reinvent the wheel? And I think
Yeah.
the more that we can come together, people with different perspectives, like H, you were saying something, but you are going to see the problem from a very different perspective than I
Mhm.
see it as a professional.
Mhm.
And sometimes the best ideas, no, not sometimes, the majority of the best ideas come from people who are complete outsiders to
Mhm.
the problems because they see it in a new light. So
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of things that we could sort of coordinate and define what is the best strategy by pulling our heads together. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I'm such a big proponent of collaboration. It has to happen. It's what the community needs and what the community wants, and it only makes us all stronger. And we're all exhausted. I mean, we just are. There's never enough hours in the day. There's never enough funds to get things done. And are you talking about me, Nacho? Don't be
No,
rude.
me, me,
And
me.
Eric and I keep watching this one wrinkle sometimes when I talk, and it's
All
gotten
right,
worse
don't
this
worry.
year. Yeah, just the vanity. It's but it's true, and we only succeed when we work together and have these sharing of ideas. Like, you want to use any resources we have? Yes. Tell us what we need to do to better support
Yeah.
your community.
The,
All of those different things.
the other thing for me, speaking of that, Jenna, the exhaustion part is I've always
Mhm.
thought, if I die tomorrow, um, I want to leave a legacy that extends
Mhm.
beyond what we've been able to do up until now. And in our case, a lot of our work is supportive because people
Yeah.
don't have food to eat. But I'll give you an example of, Jenna, you know about this, but one of the big problems in Colombia is access to medications because
Yeah.
insurance companies are not responding to their obligations because they're expensive. So we had a lawyer who represents every family who has a need for a lawyer free of
Mhm.
charge. And that is helping tons of people getting disability benefits. Migrants from Venezuela get registered into the system. We're getting them wheelchairs when they need them. And that's
Mhm.
one person is able to handle lots of different people. And those are the kinds of programs that once they're established, are not needed anymore.
No.
They can be adopted by different people, etc. And I think the application context and these ideas that we're talking about, in many ways, they have to be sustained through time,
Yeah.
even if none of us are here,
Mhm.
because for the foreseeable future, there's going to be new families that find out and they need that level of support. So more and more, I want to dedicate my effort and
Mhm.
working with others who are better than me at this, at creating really a reality that helps them independently of me or the organization I happen to be working in.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to also say it's a good exhaustion because we are doing meaningful work, but there's always more to be done. There's always more resources that need to be created, and we only succeed working together. And that's a fantastic example of, one person can do a lot with that specific need and that country, and that's huge to the day-to-day impacts of families impacted. I mean, that's just huge. No, I think this is, yeah, I always love these conversations. Um, just curious, what are your overall thoughts about how these kinds of programs continuing to build, how can they affect the community?
Um, I could see us probably using these types of resources to eventually hold larger scale virtual events.
Mhm.
One of the things that's always a challenge is finding the resources or the time to bring everybody physically together in one location.
Mhm.
So I think there's a lot of potential, and um, you know, we've made it, we've Erica's done a great job simplifying it into here's a weekly list of what's happening almost every day. And then on a monthly scale of here's the calendar every month. But then I think like Erica was saying, there's always room to grow.
Mhm.
So there are regions that are hard to reach depending on time frames. There's a lot of our game leads are within a very finite sliver of these time these time changes. Um, so being able to bring more people together I mean, we did a small scale example of something like this when we did our 24-hour stream.
Mhm.
Um, I think that alone is something that would potentially grow, and especially internationally, where
Mhm.
you mimic that same concept year to year to year to year, and it grows and grows and grows because you're having somebody hop in from Finland
Mhm.
at your 6 a.m. time slot, and then you're having somebody hop in at your 3 p.m. slot when some people may be at work or something in a different country. I mean, there are ways to um, d provide fundraising,
Mhm.
reach those international communities from the comfort of your home, from the seat that you're normally sitting in playing a game, and that the opportunity to I wish I could remember who had recently joined internationally, and I hopped on a Saturday morning. I was watching Erica play a game on a Saturday morning, and I was shaving my head in the bathroom, and and I cannot remember what country they were from, but they were like, I really liked this thing that H had said, and it resonated with me, and I was like, I live in a small town in North Carolina, and I
Mhm.
was able to say something that helped someone that I've never met before, 2,000 miles away. And in that moment, I think it really hit me how much opportunity there is with this.
Mhm. Yeah. Very nicely said. It just takes that one time to get someone involved, and to give them that platform to be the decision maker for what that looks like. And H, you're a perfect example because the US has a lot of resources available. And it's not like you've been involved for many, many years. It's taken a process for you to finally reach out. And since then, it's been something where you have developed a path forward that works well for you and that has taken you to a lot of places, but it's also helped you individually
Mhm.
just to be able to grow, be more open about it, serve as a volunteer for our retreat in Florida and help other people. And it's amazing what seems so small as something just like a comment can then change that trajectory for someone else to then inspire them to get support or reach out. You never know exactly what that's going to be. And that's why this all matters collectively. Yeah, Nacho.
Can I ask? I'm going to tell a story and then a question for Erica. Have you ever tried or um, using the new Apple headphones that translate automatically? Um, well, I don't know if you have them. I don't have them. I'm not spending
I don't
500,
either.
but you know what
Yeah.
they are. No, they're the new
I,
pod.
s- I still have wired
Yeah, but
headphones.
no, I'm just thinking
Yep.
because let's say if you could do it that way and people had access to them, that they translate automatically into their own language, then a lot of the translation aspect could be assuming that people can have access to that, but you may not need to do it in every language to just see if it's compatible with the
Yeah.
with this new iPods that right now I think is 6 languages, but it's probably going to increase. Apparently, they work extremely well between, say, Spanish and English. So it may just be a very easy way to say to people, if you have this
Yep.
in another country in these languages, you can use them and work. That's just something that popped into my head. The second
They
thing,
also have some
yeah,
other apps that people can use that automatically pop up different translations that I think don't cost anything. But I've my husband called out those headphones, but they are very expensive.
yeah, they are very
Yeah.
expensive, but um, in at some point, like with everything else, people start getting access if they really work well.
Yeah.
Well, the second thing I was saying is that even before I started Factor H, I went to I think it was my first real encounter with patients outside of the US. I gave a talk in Taiwan, and they
Mhm.
asked me what I wanted to do in my free time to do a city tour, and I said no, I want to go to the Huntington's clinic. So they took me there, and I met this family, and it was a father who was very sick, almost terminal, the youngest kid I've ever seen. He was 3 and he was already dying of HD. And then his middle brother was 14, very shy, didn't speak English. So I had a translator. I was asking him, I said, do you know anybody do you know any other family with Huntington's? No. Have you ever talked to anybody about how you feel? No. And that
Mhm.
was the first seed for me to think, okay, I need to do something here directed at young people because I realized there's such a communication
Mhm.
barrier, especially in Asian cultures where people
Mhm.
don't really, they have a much harder time than, I guess, Latin cultures to talk about their feelings. But for a person like that, this forum is exactly what they need because
Mhm.
it's anonymized, it's fun, and it may take
Mhm.
them several weeks to do it, but no, I mean, I think this is what really breaking a barrier because
Mhm.
people are really, especially young people, are really afraid and they don't have anybody to talk to. They just
Mhm.
don't. And
Mhm.
the question is, how do you make this as accessible as possible to people?
Mhm.
Um, even there may be a lot of people who speak English in other parts of the world. It's a question of how do you trying to promote it for specific geographies?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I don't know, Erica, that's another communication topic, but to see the uptake from people in other countries and how
Mhm.
would it work? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say like a lot of things boil down to financially, right? I mean, when we're
Mhm.
streaming, when we're doing things like, we're still trying to get like, little donations for H to wear a wig and a, somebody to pick out his attire on stream. But a lot of these, when it comes to finances, if we have sponsorships, if we have people that
Mhm.
are coming in and want to help fund this idea, that's money that goes to, you know, technology that can help with language barriers. That's, you know, a console, a used console to somebody who only has a phone and they're no longer having, like, it's becoming more difficult for them to use. It's accessible gaming equipment. It's somebody's dream to have this one game, right? And it's it's that too. It's that piece of, you know, we're trying to spread awareness, spread that word, but also, you know, if people want to financially invest, that's how that money would be used, is to
Yeah.
breaking down even more those kinds of barriers technologically and
Yeah, I mean,
just
this is something that Jenna and I talked, and even though we've known each other now for a couple of years, we never really talked about partnering properly. It's more like, I'm doing this, can you help me out with selecting people or things like that? But
yep.
I think we are facing similar problems with our, let's say, audiences, and I think we'll be stronger for certain things that we all agree are something that can become a priority regardless of who organization takes the leadership in developing it. That in terms of the financing, it's going to be a lot easier if we pull together rather than you, Erica, reaching out to X or Y. That rather we say we think this is a good vehicle, that the three institutions are behind it, and that we sort of present a framework how this would be managed financially. And for me, Jenna knows this, I don't care at all who helps the patients. I just want them to be helped. So I don't need to be named. Factor H doesn't need to be named. It doesn't really matter. But if we can, by pulling together, we can either increase the talent and the output and be able to raise money for the things that we consider important, whether it's the app or whether it's this or both things. It doesn't really matter to me. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Lots of really important possibilities out there.
Yeah.
Well, this is really great, everybody. Thank you so much. Just want to open it up for any closing comments or thoughts as we wrap up our discussion.
Thank you, everybody, for what you do, because of what you do, people like me who have not been comfortable in and around HD, or talking about HD, have sort of found their place within this community. And um just know, I know you know already, but everything you do is so, so valuable.
We love you, Age.
Thank you for those words. And I think one of the things that doesn't get said is that it's completely bi-directional. I mean, I don't think I've done anything more important than getting involved in helping families with HD, in terms of the impact that it's had in my life at a personal level, but also as a scientist at a professional level. And the older I get, the more meaningful this work becomes. And I'm just really happy, Jenna, that you connected us. And I think together we're stronger. And let's make it happen.
Yeah.
Let's do the thing.
Let's do the thing. Game over. Game over.
You just made Nacho a little bit younger with that. Well, this is really great. We'll put in the links and everything on the post so how people can find out more. But thank you all so much for joining us. Thanks for our panelists. And again, stronger together. Take care.
Right.
Take care.